Thank you, Holly and Chris. I got so relaxed, I forgot to come back up here. Thank you. It was really special. And we'll hear from Holly later on this evening as well. Well, now, as thank goodness, I'm going to be turning things over to this evening's Master of Ceremonies. I'm proud to say that he's a James Beard Award-winning chef, restaurateur, cookbook author, and television host. In fact, he's got a new series on PBS that comes out very soon. He's a passionate philanthropist and public ambassador for local food and sustainable agriculture in his native New Orleans and around the country. And his 9 acclaimed restaurants each celebrate the region in their own unique way. He was an outspoken advocate to support the local farmers and fishermen after the devastation of Hurricane Katrina, and of course after the Gulf oil spill. And as the founder of his namesake foundation, the Josh Besh Foundation, he extends micro-loans to local farmers as well as culinary scholarships to deserving students in New Orleans. He's a dedicated family man, and his newest book, My Family Table, is a passionate plea for home cooking. And of course, the PBS series is also based on that wonderful book. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome our Master of Ceremonies for this evening, Josh Besh.
Wow, I think I'm going to start drinking early, like the night is young. That was beautiful. Thanks for sharing that with us. And thanks for all those wonderful things. I love it when people say nice things about me in front of me. No, that doesn't happen very often in my house. But I really am glad to be here tonight in support of the James Beard Foundation's mission to foster a healthier, more sustainable food system. And to honor all those people that really that make it happen. I'm kind of in awe just sitting with some of the honorees of this year's awards banquet at what they've been able to do and how much vision they've had and the guts just to carry this out each and every day. It's amazing. As I was preparing tonight and getting to know their work, I was reminded of a philosophy that I learned to embrace, well, I had to embrace it years ago in the Marine Corps. And that was a philosophy based on mission, understanding what the mission is and a focus on that mission and doing whatever it takes to achieve that mission. It's called just getting it done. In face of adversity and seemingly overwhelming challenges, sometimes we just have to dig in and get it done. This philosophy served me well through all that we've been through down in New Orleans. And I believe that the honorees tonight kind of carry the same philosophy. They get it. They understand what it means just to make things happen, just to have a conversation and to see it to its fruition. I don't know if any of them were in the Marine Corps. I've been told that Jason and I are fraternity brothers, but maybe that's the closest relationship here. But more importantly, what they've done is really inspire other people. They've inspired action. And you can't underestimate the power of inspiration and the effect that it has on affecting a greater change. I first fell in love with the farm-to-table movement years ago, a long time ago, during my apprenticeship in southern Germany. I was working for this great chef, Chef Carl Josef Fuchs, and what he taught me about sustainable cooking is he called it responsible cooking. And that meant being responsible to your farmers, being responsible to the land, cooking what was in season. This was inspiring to me because this wasn't happening in my life as a young cook, kind of, just coming through culinary school. But I was introduced to this and it really stuck. Years later, you can cut to me and I'm building farms, and I have a farm behind one of my restaurants, La Provence, out in the country, about 35 minutes out of New Orleans. I started this initially because I was unhappy with the options I was given. I wanted to become more self-sufficient. I'm hard-headed like that. And I wanted to try to become a lot more responsible about the way that I was using land and treating land and raising animals. We began requiring that all of our chefs and managers spend time working on the farm. And that had a dramatic effect, of course, on the way that they thought of food and discussed food and served food and prepared food for people. But then school groups started coming. School children who maybe didn't have a relationship built with where food actually comes from, with the source. And so as these children started to visit, they got inspired. Many of them started volunteering at 2 or 3 of our local farmers markets. I was just talking to Will earlier today that he inspired a group of young students that came out to see our farm that then decided we're going to be urban farmers. And now most of our herbs that we use within all of our restaurants come from this neighborhood that used to just be bullet-ridden. And it's amazing to see the effect. We can't grow enough vegetables, obviously, to feed the world from what I'm doing in our little farms behind La Provence, but we can do other things. We can inspire change, maybe big, maybe small. But I've learned that all we need to do is whatever we're capable of. That brings me to our first honoree, who's teaching the world's largest food corporations how to do what they can do to the best of their abilities to build a sustainable food system for the future. Jason Clay is the Senior Vice President of Market Transformation at the World Wildlife Fund, where he's been since 1999. Jason, who holds degrees from Harvard, the London School of Economics, and Cornell, wow, is a globally recognized expert on food certification and food production. And what he wants to do is freeze the footprint, the food footprint on our planet. And as an architect of the World Wildlife Fund strategy for engaging the private sector to practice environmentally sensitive standards, I'm sure that's easy, he is well on his way to getting it done, doing what he can. His innovative approach was to identify large corporations that control about 15 commodities that are produced. Encourage these corporations to sit down at the table in a very pre-competitive way and have them work together to create standards for producing and using raw materials. And he's been very successful at persuading corporations to lead with ethics first. I think there's a lesson there for all of us. And competition second, hopefully ensuring that we all continue to have an earth to do business on. In addition to his World Wildlife Fund role, over the course of his career, Jason has run the family farm, taught at Harvard and Yale, and worked for the USDA, spending more than 30 years working with environmental and human rights organizations. He founded the award-winning Cultural Survival Quarterly and is the author of more than 15 books. I'm on number 3, and I don't know how you did it. Jason is also the first ever Food and Agriculture Fellow for the National Geographic Society. He has been a very busy man, and why don't we take a closer look at Jason's story.
Jason Clay grew up on a small family farm in Missouri, where virtues like caring for your land and doing more with less were necessities rather than choices. After earning a scholarship to Harvard for International Agriculture and Anthropology, Clay went on to develop one of the food industry's first eco-labels with Ben & Jerry's in 1988. But it was Clay's experience working with refugees and famine victims in Sudan, many of whom were displaced farmers, that reaffirmed his commitment to preserving our natural resources.
In the next 40 years, we have to produce as much food as we have in the last 8,000. And if we don't get where and how we produce that food right, we won't have a planet that's recognizable.
Since 1999, as the Senior Vice President of Market Transformation at World Wildlife Fund, Clay has made it his mission to figure out how, specifically within the agricultural industry, we can meet the demands of a rapidly growing population, producing more with less land, less water, and less pollution.
Agriculture is the biggest environmental problem on the planet today. So getting companies to buy better, to buy more sustainable, that's how we've decided to move forward.
By fostering strategic partnerships amongst the world's largest food corporations, he's helped create standards that reduce pesticides, deforestation, and waste on a global scale. Jason Clay has not only changed the way corporations do business, he has changed the way people think about achieving sustainability.
So please join me in congratulating James Beard Foundation's Leadership Award winner, Jason Clay.
So as they say in my world, sustainability is a journey, not a destination. I think I'm probably about halfway, maybe a little more than halfway, in that journey myself. But I'd like to tell you a little bit about how I got where I am and what I've learned along the way and where I think we need to get to going forward. So as the presentation said, I grew up on a farm. It was a very small farm. For about 15 years, we lived on less than $1 a day a person. I planted my first potatoes when I was 2, drove a tractor just before I was 3. I think hung on to the steering wheel of a tractor might have been closer to the point. I started fishing for meat at 5 and hunting for rabbits at 7. And on a good week, I would get, with a good box of shells, I would get 49 to 51 rabbits. There are 50 shells in a box. I think it's you have a very different perspective on food when you kill it. You're thankful for it, you appreciate it, but it has to be done. When I was 15, the same tractor that I drove when I was 2 or 3 flipped over on my father and killed him. And so I had to figure out how to run the farm with my mother. And we did that for about 4 years until I could leave to go to college. And then my brother took over. And I couldn't get away from farming fast enough. It had been idyllic and it had been horrible. But more importantly, it wasn't a future for me. And every step I took to get away from farming actually drew me closer to it. So my first summer of college, I was in Arkansas working on an archaeological dig, sifting through the dirt, and I was saying, what's different about this than farming? I've been doing this my whole life. Then I went to southern Mexico and lived with a Mayan Indian village and hoed his corn with him, which was what you had to do when you were living in the village. Then I went to Brazil and worked with peasants and in the northeast of Brazil. I've worked with human rights groups, with refugees, with famine victims, taught in various places, worked with farmers on 6 continents. And what I have learned is that if we don't get food right, both how and where we produce it, we can turn out the lights and go home. We won't have a planet that's recognizable. That's the sustainability side of food. That's what we have as a challenge. Because as the earlier clip said, in the next 40 years, we have to produce as much food as we have in the last 8,000. Agriculture is the biggest threat now. What's it going to be if we have to produce twice as much food a year, which is what the projections are? The Ethiopians that I worked with in my famine days have an expression that goes something like this: you can't wake a person who's pretending to sleep. We need to wake up. We're asleep at the wheel. We have things to do and not a lot of time to do it. So that's what I would like to leave you with. Sustainability is real. Our lives depend on it. More importantly, our children depend on it and every other living thing. Thank you.
Congratulations again. That's powerful stuff, but stuff we need to hear. We're going to take a short break, and we'll be back soon to present some more awards. Y'all enjoy.